Okay, let's get started. Welcome to EECS Discussion Week 3. Today I'll be doing a little demonstration of the Singleton Pattern, which we talked about on Monday. After that, I have 2 tips of the week, and both of the tips are related to using public variables and modifying those public variables in the inspector. So, let's start off. So this is the same scene as before, the same project we were working on last week when we did the color tint example of the composition pattern. I just added a UI text in front, but if I go ahead and press play, you'll see that it goes ahead and it tints the screen red. So what I want to do is I'm going to take this text, let's set it up here. Let's make it top aligned like that. What we're going to do is when the ball touches the floor here, we're going to have our score text increase. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll let the score have a reference to the text, so I'll have a public text score text. We'll make this private. We don't want people modifying the score willy-nilly. We'll say score text equals this dot game object dot get component text. And this script, by the way, the cool score text manager, I put on my cool score text. It's right here. So I can just call this dot game object to get the text. Let's write public void add score int score int points, we'll call it, and we'll increment our score variable by the points value. Then we'll say score text dot text is going to equal score. By the way, this is a feature of C#. This is called string templating or string interpolation. If you put a $sign before your string and then you use curly braces inside the string, you can use the curly braces to reference variables, and it'll turn the value of those variables into the string that gets placed here. You don't even need to do variables. I could just put any arbitrary C# code. I can do like 3 plus 4, and it'll print 7 right there. So let's do this, and then over in our color tint, what we'll do is when we get a collision, we'll say GameObject.find object of type cool score text manager, because it's just somewhere out there, and we're hoping that there's just one of them. We'll find it, and we'll call add score 1. So every time a collision happens, we'll add 1 to the score. And you know what I'll do just for fun? What I'm going to do is I'm going to say target color equals color dot, do we have random color? Well, we'll do new color. We'll do float RGB, and we're going to I don't remember how random works, so you can see how prepared I am for this. So let's look this up together. Unity random return a random float number between min and max. So yeah, we'll just do random.range 0.0f 255.0f, and we'll do that for let me just confirm that with color it wants a number from 0 to 255 and not 0 to 1. Maybe it wants 0 to 1. If it's 0 to 1, let's just set it to 0 to 1. Again, you can tell how prepared I am for this. I apologize. Anyways, we'll set our target color to a random color afterwards just to make this a little more spicy. Let's see how we're doing. We've written a little bit of code here. I'm going to hit play. Oh, I pressed it twice. Sorry about that. Now score is 2. Wonder why it's adding it twice. There might be some type of double collision happening here. Maybe does the ground have a color tint script as well? Oh, I guess it does. That makes sense. So, because the ground also has a color tint, it's gonna increment twice. Well, that's not too important for the purposes of this demo, so I'm gonna keep that bug in. It's not a good bug because I'm using this color tint object and I haven't rewritten it to be nicer for this purpose, but we'll just keep it as is. So we have our score text and we have this going on, and that's great. But now what I'm going to do is I have 2 scenes here, and I want to make it so that if I hit spacebar, I can jump between scenes, and we'll make the second scene a little bit different. We'll make it thinner, make it longer, make it a little bit thicker, like this. Let's move it back a little bit, and then let's delete this one. Let's make this one, yeah, it's blue, so that's cool. So it'll be slightly different than the other one. What I want to happen is I'm going to add a scene switcher script. And what this is going to do is just when we press the space bar, we want to switch scenes. Oh, I want to put this in scripts, not in. It's annoying that Unity has become so slow. Let's go to our scene switcher, and what we'll do in our update, if input.getKeyDown keycode.space. If we get the space bar, what we're going to do is we're going to do we want to do using Unity engine.scene management. We're going to call scene manager dot load scene. Well, we have 2 scenes, right? So string current scene equals scene manager dot get to scene us a scene object, and then current scene, I believe, has a dot name. Cool. So we'll do if current scene dot name is equal to, what are our two scene names? Main and second. Let's move this up here. I'm going to do scene manager.load scene second. Else, since we only have two scenes, it doesn't matter here. Scene manager.load scene main. So let's see what happens. Okay, so we're in main. I'm going to hit spacebar. Oh, well. Should we give the scene switcher here? What happened? Let's see here. Debug.log space. Let's debug this here. Okay, I'm doing all this live, so all the bugs I run into are the ones that you see. The console is here. Scene second couldn't be loaded because it has not been added to the build settings. That's true. Let's add that scene. Let's add this scene as well. Okay, now we added them both. Now it says null reference exception. Object reference not set to an instance of an object. Color tint.cs 32. So we switch scenes, okay. But now we go over to color tint.cs, and it's like, oh, it doesn't know where they can't find a cool score text manager, and that's because in our second scene there isn't one. That's a problem, not just because there isn't one and it's causing this null reference exception, but we want our score to stay the same between scenes because, you know, this is a game and we want the user score to stay the same. So this is a perfect example of when we might need the Singleton pattern. This is, I want this scene text and the scene, you know, the code behind it to stay the same between the two scenes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to our cool score text manager and implement the Singleton pattern. So you can do this in Start, but traditionally a lot of people do this code in Awake. So what is the Singleton pattern? The Singleton pattern is the it's a design pattern in software engineering in which you create one and only one instance of a class that exists for the lifetime of your program. So in this code, right, we were hoping that there's only going to be one cool score text manager, and then we just call the add score on that and hope it's the right one. Here we're going to guarantee that there's only ever one cool score text manager no matter what scene we're in, and it's always going to be the exact same instance of the code, or of the class. And this is going to be, it's going to be global and it's going to be public, and everyone can talk to this single instance of the class. The Singleton pattern can be powerful, but it's good to not overuse it, because when everyone can talk to everyone else, you just make spaghetti. but in some specific cases, it is okay to do such a thing. And this is a contrived example for the purposes of, a demo for discussion, so I'm justifying it. So I'm going to create a public static cool score text manager instance. Static means that there will only ever be one of them, and one of them for any instance of the class. It's a variable of the class instead of a variable of an instance of the class. And I'll show you what that means for us. So in awake, we're going to do if instance is not equal to null, and instance is not equal to this, then we're going to destroy this GameObject. Else, we're going to do instance equals this, I believe, and then we're going to do don't destroy unload this GameObject. Here, I wrote it down here just in case I forget what it is. Yep, and then I'm going to move my score text initialization here so that it's all done in awake, because we just want to do this once, not once per scene load, and this will only run once ever in the code because we're only instantiating our instance once. In that case, I'm going to delete start, I'm going to delete update. So what does this code mean? What it means is, so awake gets called before start at the beginning of a scene. So if instance does not equal null, instance, remember, is our singleton. It's our instance of the class, our only cool score text manager. If it's not null, that means if it already exists and instance not equal to this. So remember that awake will call once per scene. So if we're our singleton, we're the instance of our singleton, and we're running awake code, we'll be like, hey, okay, instance is not equal to null. Correct. Instance not equal to this. No, we are the instance, because this is going to be the same as instance, and we're going to skip over it. But if instance isn't equal to this, then when we're inside this if statement, that means there is a second cool score text manager. And we're in the first lines of code for the second cool score text manager. And remember, we don't want a second one of these. So we're going to immediately destroy it. If we're not the second cool score text manager, that means we're at the beginning, and it's our constructor time. So we're going to do two things. We're going to set instance equal to this. So now instance is set to our only version, or only instance of the cool score text manager. Don't destroy unload this .gameObject will mean that when we go between scenes, we'll have the same cool score text manager. And then I'm doing my, just getting the get component stuff. So this is just like normal, constructor code. I'll comment this out too. Set instance. We become the only instance. Stay the same instance across scenes. We don't want a second instance. That's basically what's going on here. So now that we've added this, let's go into our color tint. We no longer have to do a find object of type call. We can do cool score text manager dot instance, and this will be a reference to our only instance. Now let's see how that works out for us. Score 2, I'm going to hit spacebar. happened? Let's see. Don't destroy on load only works for root game objects or components on root game objects. Okay, that's fine. Let's put this up here then. I'll remove this here. I'll add it to the canvas, and we'll just make the canvas the same. We'll make our cool score text manager go here, and instead of get component, we'll do get component in children. See, I'm learning as well. Let's go ahead and try this out. Okay, now I'm going to hit space, and look at that. Oh. What's happened here? Oh, this sphere doesn't have a scene switcher. That's cool. So let's go ahead and go to our second scene. Let's give the sphere scene switcher, and let's try this again. And here's the problem. One thing you have to be careful of is we don't have our, we initialize our, here we'll save it. We initialize our canvas with our cool score text in the first scene. And so we have to be careful that when we start our game, we're starting in the first scene. Otherwise, when we go to the second scene, you know, and start playing from the second scene, things will break. So what we can do is, because remember we wrote sort of this text manager to have only one instance, we can do a copy here, and that way we'll still have only one canvas ever. So let's go to main. Let's try this. There we go. You can see now that our canvas is in the Don't Destroy on Load section of the inspector. Now I can hit space, and I can switch between scenes. And there you have it. This is a rather simple example of using the Singleton pattern, but I hope it helps, and it's kind of illustrates why the Singleton pattern might be helpful in your code. It's a really powerful design pattern, not just in game development, but in other parts of software engineering too. And I hope you think about using it when you come across a problem. Cool. So that's the example I had for the Singleton pattern. The next thing I'm going to show you is 2 tips for within the Unity editor. These are both kind of small ones, but they're related to public number variables in your class. So let's say for some reason in color tint I'm just gonna add a public int random int. Okay, and let's reload the inspector, the editor. Now we have a random int here. And you know that if you click on the name, you can drag left and right and make the number change. Set it back to 0. So the first tip is that in numbers in the inspector, you can do basic math into them and it'll do that math for you. So I can do, 3 plus 4. I can do, 7 divided by 2, and it'll round it because this is an int. I can do 2 times 4 times 5 divided by 3 plus 1, and it'll handle that math for you. So, that'll work anywhere. So if I want to take the sphere, I'm going to do 1 times 2, I'm going to do 1 times 3, 1 times 4. I can just do that math directly. So that's the first small tip of the week. The other tip of the week with public variables that are numbers is you can turn these from numbers into sliders. And the way you do that is in your script, when you have your public variable, right above it, you do square brackets, and then you say range, and then you put in your range inside. So I'm going to say -10, 10 is my range. And now, if we go back to the editor, and we let the editor refresh, it's now a slider for us, where the top of the slider is, we can still set it manually to a value outside of the slider, but our slider itself will restrict us to the values that we put in to that range call. Yeah. It's small, but it's if you are trying to restrict the different values that you're testing with, when you're, testing in the editor, this is a great thing to use. And if you want to just be like, if you know what wrong and right values are, so for example with, the speed variable of a, character, if you know the character can't be faster than 50, you can make a slider that goes between 0 and 50. And then you can, pick anything within that to adjust the speed. And those are the tips of the week. And that's all I have for discussion this week. Hopefully this was helpful. If it was, that's great. If you have any feedback for me, feel free to let me know. And I'm happy to make improvements, always. Thanks for watching.